Okay, we're on.
Got it.
Then you should have the ability to share your screen.
Yeah, it's just taking a second. And there we go. All right, can you all see my screen now? The green Carbon Collective?
Yep.
Okay, I'm really excited to be here. At Carbon Collective Investing, we have created an affiliate partnership with Eco Athletes. And what that means is for any referral that comes through Eco Athletes, and this is going to be business-based or employer-based, we will be compensating Eco Athletes with 6 months of fees from our services. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what our services are so you can get a little bit of familiarity with it, and then open it up to how you can introduce people to us, and trying to keep it as simple as possible. And if you have any questions, you feel free to ask me. So Carbon Collective Investing, like I was saying before, was founded as a means to help solve climate change. Our co-founders, James Regalinsky and Zach Stein, had read Project Drawdown and realized that we weren't missing technology. What we were missing is human will. And so in this idea, there's a bunch of different ways human will can be expressed. Cultural, of which sports plays a huge role. You can have political will. You can have religious will. They, joking around, we're thinking about creating a religion, but trees didn't seem like it would catch on. And so it's there's all these ways that humans can collaborate and express collective will. And one of them is money. And so investing seemed to be a place that is also a belief statement in the future. And as Zach and James went out and talked to their friends, people kept getting stuck. And the reason why is because so many people wanted to invest in this future, wanted to invest ethically, but they kept, being unable to find good options, right? And so traditional investing has been defined largely by Vanguard and to a lesser extent Fidelity. And it's to hold basically a lot of stocks and a lot of bonds over all kinds of different sectors of the economy. This is like healthcare and technology and utilities, so it's all these different parts of the economy and holding little bits of lots of them, and not being discriminating and keeping your fees really low. But the problem has been is that in our economy, there's a sizable portion of our economy that's still in fossil fuels. And something that our ethical point of view led us to discover is they're not good financially either. They have been underperforming for the last 10 years. And so one of the things that we saw was hey, there's this framework that is ethically wrong and potentially financially not a good way to invest. And so in going into a better framework, the traditional financial services model created this thing called ESG. It's shorthand for environmental, social, and governance investing. And basically, it's ways to evaluate companies' environmental, social, and governance risks, which means it's a risk framework. Now, if they don't do a good job of that, which happens quite some time, and it gets muddy, there'll be things like, BlackRock has ESGU, which is like an ETF, which is a collection of stocks. And they include Exxon in it, which to me seems preposterous that you could include Exxon in an ESG fund, with climate change being so significant. And so, but even in the best case, when you get to some of these really well-known groups, even some that we greatly, deeply admire, As You Sow, they're starting to highlight companies that don't have these risks. And so it's they don't have the same risk of it'd be like Microsoft. They have their data centers, they're powered by renewable energy, and that's a really great way to power their data centers, but it's insufficient to solve climate change. So this was kind of the theory of change that they came up with. We need to divest from fossil fuels, reinvest in climate solutions. I'll kind of go and show you a little bit. So it's when we're talking about investing, it's we need to be investing about like 10 times more every year and not investing in fossil fuel extraction. I mean, the last couple of days has been a little bit difficult because we've heard of the Willow like pipeline in Alaska, which we should not be doing if we want to meet our targets. But it's like, how do we bring this into our framework as well? Going back to this is like a very specific example. Vanguard, they are kind of the gold standard in investing, especially in 401ks. And you see they have over twice as much invested in fossil fuels as they do in climate solutions. Now, the thing is that like we define climate solutions as being things that are like solar, wind, electric vehicles, batteries, water irrigation efficiency, dynamic glass. That like Project Drawdown has all of these solutions. And as such, it's like there's no options when you get to 401ks, right? And so, Becca, this may be like more education for you. When you go out into the working world, your employer has a tax incentive to get you to invest for retirement. The government is trying to like incentivize you to be self-sufficient so that when you're retired, you can pay for your own, healthcare, house, so you don't have to rely on the government like subsidies. So like that's essentially why a 401k exists. But in creating these portfolio options, no one has really increased the amount of like diversity of options. And this doesn't align with what the government is looking for because there are people who will not invest in 401ks because there are not options that align with what they want. So and companies want this, right? But when it comes to it, like we're basically the only investment manager that creates sustainable target date funds. And I think I want to dig into like what a target date fund is, or target date option is. So if you have a financial advisor, you are Becca, I'm just gonna like use you for example, right? Like let's say you get out of school, you get a little bit of money, you get a good job, right? Or like golf career like goes well. You make the LPGA. You start creating a portfolio. Your financial advisor is going to create your portfolio in a way that's going to be anticipating you retiring 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. And so what that means is they will start to have more stocks in the portfolio because they grow more, but they go up and down more. And so they'll also have a little bit of bonds, which is just like loans. Like you're basically loaning companies out money and they pay you back a little bit until you get your entire money back, plus all the annual paybacks. They're called coupons and it's called your principal. So you have these two types of investments. And as you get older, you want more of the conservative one and less of the aggressive one. So you get this balanced portfolio, still growing, but protecting it from like significant downside losses. So that, when let's say you're Annika Sorenstam, and I'm just like, you're the only person on this call. So like, I can walk you through something that like will help you envision this. Let's say you're Annika Sorenstam. You've had a great career. You're 44, right? You're thinking about, I mean, she's older than that now, but like a few years ago, you're 44, you're thinking about retiring. And you're like, I need to live on this money. Well, what you want to have is that money to be more balanced. And so it will be a different type of portfolio. So in a 401k, these things are very commonplace already. You pick, I want to retire in 2050, but there's no one that does it. I want to retire in 2050 and have a sustainable option. Like no one creates that. Like there's two examples that are very limited, which are Betterment. If you use their platform, which they're not very popular with like very big companies, it's like a small group of companies that they're popular with, and their portfolio isn't particularly sustainable. They still invest in fossil fuels, for example. They don't have much reduced emissions nor much of a theory of change. The other one is Natixis, has a series of ESG target date funds, but they also include fossil fuels. So they don't really live up to that standard, even though people could point to that. So we're really the only game in town. Some people will create what's called fund lists. And that's just a list of like stocks and bonds in funds. And just to go back to it, it doesn't create that like holistic approach that will get gradually more conservative without the person that's investing having to think about it. So this really shows how that relationship exists, right? So we are the investment advisor, right? Then there's a record keeper. We will go out and shop for if they want to work with Vanguard, if they want to work with Vestwell or ADP or Fidelity, we can help them with any of those ones. And for a lot of these people, if they're business owners, they want to make sure it connects with their payroll. So like if they're paying their employees, there's usually a portion that gets like pre-tax get put into the 401k, right? And so that's basically how it works. And this gets into our theory of change. There's nothing like what we have. Divested from Exxon, Duke Energy, Chevron, reinvested in Sunrun, Plug Power, Tesla, way more than that too. There's and then we pressure the rest, basically seeing that there's a whole group of people, a whole group of companies rather, that can exist in a decarbonized world, but just have to change their business practices. Kind of like that Microsoft example I was giving you before. If more companies, Costco starts to use renewable energy on all their warehouses and electric vehicles for their fleets, that would significantly reduce emissions. So it's things like that. Now, the biggest thing that is different from individual investing, Becca, so that your Annika Sorenstam example, and a company is that we do options. We don't tell people how to invest, right? So this would be if, let's say you got sponsored by TaylorMade, for example, and I don't know, what is your favorite golf clubs?
I use Titleist irons and then TaylorMade driver and woods.
Okay. All right. So I'll just stick with TaylorMade because everyone, I don't know, like I always just like identified more with like what I was hitting off the tee.
I do too, actually.
Yeah.
I like to hit it far off the tee. So
yeah, of course. TaylorMade, like I had a very similar setup. So but I played Cleveland back when Roger Cleveland was at Cleveland and not at Callaway. I used to play Cleveland Blades. So but Titleist is a very similar thing. So anyways, TaylorMade, they're going to have a bunch of employees, right? And they basically will not have any way for an employee at TaylorMade who cares about the environment to invest in a sustainable way. They will have only this Vanguard standard or something like that, and maybe a few funds. And so what we're saying is, let's create options for people. It helps increase the amount of people that invest in the plan, which the government looks really well upon, and it gets more money into climate solutions. So this is, yeah.
Breen, I just wanted to just say one thing. We have a new champion, and I am excited to welcome in Lena Taylor, who is, well, Lena, maybe you could introduce yourself really quickly. Great to see you.
Well, first of all, sorry to interrupt the meeting. Breen, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lena.
Okay, yeah. Sorry to interrupt and be here late. Thank you, Lou, for the opportunity to introduce myself. Just very briefly, because I want to hear what you have to say, Breen. I've known Lou since last fall. We've been working together, and I've just been blown away by how committed he is to this space. We've run a couple of different climate executive accelerators, and now we are in our second version of it, which is a training class, and we have quite a few champions, thanks to Lou, in the second version. So
that's awesome.
That's what I'll say for now. But
I'd love to learn more.
I'm going to say one quick thing and then hand it back to Breen. Lena is a two-time Olympian in beach volleyball, playing with her sister from Bulgaria, and her story is the stuff of a movie. And I'm talking about
Lena,
a really good, like, red carpet Oscar type of movie. like
I'll have to dust off my screenwriting chops. I just wrote a screenplay for one of my friends. I have a background in writing too. So
wow. Okay.
I'm very partial to volleyball. My amazing wife played collegiate volleyball. We went and watched a match between UH and Long Beach State at our beach down the street from us. So it's definitely something that she's always playing. I'm not particularly good at. I don't jump very well. So
Yeah, not a lot of people, including me, but so where did she play in college?
she played at Columbia.
At Columbia. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So she played in Columbia.
You guys are in California now?
Yeah, we are.
Whereabouts?
We're in Laguna Beach, so there's a really big beach volleyball scene here.
Oh yeah, I'm in San Diego, so I'm just down the street from
Yeah,
you.
yeah, awesome. Well, if you ever want to come up and play volleyball, my wife would be ecstatic, and also a little. She'd be like,
Well,
she'll talk herself down.
how about we settle on pickleball? Because,
Okay,
yeah,
I've never
pickleball-
played, so I have no idea.
Oh man, no. Tennis. But back to Breen. And
Okay,
back to
Breen.
Carbon Collective.
All right, so Lena, just to give you like a very quick setup, I'll do this to you, like do this for you in like 20 seconds. Basically, businesses help their employees invest for retirement, and because of the regulations, most people have not created a way to invest sustainably. We are the only investment manager that creates sustainable target date options for their employees that will get gradually more conservative as they get closer to retirement, while still staying divested from fossil fuels and reinvested in climate solutions. So that's like the little thing. I'm just explaining a little bit more in detail right now, how we work, right? So when we work with a company, so if it were like, I don't know, like the first, I was explaining to Rebecca off TaylorMade, but now like maybe I'll pick something like in the middle. There's like got to be like a sports brand that like Under Armour, right? Because Under Armour probably does a little bit of volleyball and a little bit of golf, right? Under Armour's employees, like there will be a lot of employees there that really want to invest sustainably, right? They're performance driven, they're future minded. They have no way to invest sustainably, and no investment firm has really come up with a target date approach. And so we're the only one. What I was explaining is there are a few financial advisors that what they do is they create a fund list, but that still puts the burden of responsibility for investing and creating a portfolio on the individual. And so that's what we take off their plate. And so it's as easy when you come to us of just picking like, oh, I want to retire in 2040 and I want to invest sustainably. I'm going to pick Carbon Collective Signature 2040 target date option. That's all you have to do. So it just the Department of Labor also looks upon this like very friendly as well, because the reason is they're looking for ways to manage risk. And by doing this, we are saying we are managing the risk for people and making it unlikely that they'll bear undue losses. So this data is a little bit old, but our portfolios are a great way to be like a long-term set and forget way to go. And they have in the last 5 years, this is with some back testing because we were just launched in October of 2020. We have outperformed the market. So most people associate sustainable investing with with sacrificing performance, and we don't believe that's the case any longer. The last year, these two have come back quite a bit. And what I would say is they're very similar now. We're probably just a little bit more. It's not as dramatic, but last year was like a very unique year, is what we're seeing, with inflation being as high as it was, with oil being the only sector that did well. We don't believe that's the case going forward. We're actually very optimistic on we believe that our portfolios will continue to outperform over the next 30 years. They will be different though. As you can see, like they perform differently, and sometimes they'll be more down. Like this period, they'd be more down in the last year than a regular portfolio, because the other portfolios have fossil fuels. But over time, we believe that this is going to be a better way to invest. So that's kind of our program. We come into companies, we create portfolios on a record keeper that they want, make it really easy. We have a bunch of tools for financial education. We have a financial coach. Her name is Brooke Tomasetti. She's the founder of Money Life Mentor. She'll have educational aspects to it. And It's been very popular so far, but we're trying to grow as fast as possible so that we can get as much into climate solutions as possible. Now, in terms of like your all's responsibility in this affiliate program, all we're looking for is introductions to people at companies that would be interested in this. So that's like the responsibility. The expectations in terms of how well this will work, it takes time. You know, these tend to be decisions that take 3-4 months to make. And then oftentimes we might have to change their record keeper or the platform on which they invest because their costs are too high is like a very common version of this. And so it can take like 6 months for us to start paying you. That is very common. But we see that there's kind of like 2 areas. It's like companies that are small, you know, CEO, it could be like families, relatives, you know, it could be things like that. It could be your sponsors. It could be your managers, your like, you know, people like that. Becca, you haven't like, you know, made it pro yet, so you don't have the managers yet, but that will happen. You know, it is my help. So it's like things like that will help us get quicker adoption. And then there's big companies that will take even longer than what I was saying. I would say at minimum 9 months to make a decision. Right now we're pretty far along with a couple like really big companies that you would recognize. But it's like, and we still probably have a little ways to go. So, so the bigger companies, and this is like, if you're thinking like Google, Apple, Facebook, you know, kind of all those, like they take a lot longer. And I don't know what every company's appetite is, but if they're mission aligned, places that take sustainability seriously, like a Microsoft powering all their data centers on renewable energy, we believe they're going to be very, very receptive to this. Hey,
So
Lou,
Breen, maybe you could share what the champions will actually do to do the referral.
Yep. So I will send you over after this meeting just an email template that you can use. This is meant to be a suggestion, not a rule. You like all you have to do is email somebody, be like, hey, as part of Eco Athletes, we just created this partnership. It's really cool. I think you would really like it. You know, tailor-made, like you take this really seriously. There's a lot of people at your company that take this seriously. You know, all it is adding options. I think this would be something that you would like. And if TaylorMade goes like, oh yeah, then you just go, you should talk to Breen. And then all you have to do is introduce me and I'll just keep following up because I'm relentless. Well, it's like, Becca, you know golf, like if like it's all on your shoulders. So you just get used to like, okay, like I know I doubled that last hole, but like I got to get a couple birdies, like squeeze a couple birdies coming in.
So just to kind of drive home the point. So Breen will send over a template for an email for you, and actually I can do it, Patches can do it, anybody in the Eco Athletes family can do it, to introduce Carbon Collective to anyone, either first line of, you know, the best option is someone who has responsibility for a 401k decision at a company. It could also be at a university, i.e. Stanford, which is a
Stanford's very sustainably minded too.
Yes. Now that, or it could be a small business, or it could be a medium-sized business, somewhere in between. And secondarily, and Breen, correct me if I'm wrong, let's say you don't know the person who has the decision-making responsibility at a company for a 401k, but you know someone at the company. You could talk to that person, explain what Carbon Collective is about, and then say, hey, do you know who has responsibility? And then once you find the right person and they say, yeah, I'd talk to Breen, or maybe the CEO of Carbon Collective, however you do it, then you make that introduction, and then Breen and Carbon Collective steps into the breach. And so did I say it right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe you could explain, you explained the timing of the decision-making process. Maybe you could explain how the commission structure would work and what potential, what potential revenue could look like.
Yeah.
Or income.
So I'll give the range. So the revenue is the first 6 months of fees, and we charge $100 a month until they're $500,000, and then we start charging like 1/4% of that. That is annually. So for example, if they have $1 million, that would be $2,500 for the year, and so we would pay out like $1,250 to the Eco Athlete organization, right? $1 million would be like a fairly small plan. Most plans will have, I mean, unless it's like just starting, but if they've been around for a little bit, like $1 million is kind of in that smallish area. And then as they get bigger, that's where you start to get like really interesting payouts, right? So if you're $1 billion, in assets under management, which a lot of companies, I'm sure, I would bet TaylorMade is somewhere around there. For example, if you're $1 billion, now you're looking at like $250,000 in fees for a year if they stay with our normal model, and that would be $125,000 to Eco Athletes. So.
And then the way we're doing it is that the referrer, so the individual, so it could be Rebecca, could be Patches, could be Lena, anybody would keep 80% of that first 6 months, and then Eco Athletes, the organization, will keep 20%. And like that.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I just wanted to like make sure that I will always be here to answer any questions. And I also want to let you know that this is our first, literally our very first affiliate sponsor group. It's like you and Heavy Water Surf are our guinea pigs. So I want to make sure this program is successful. I know I don't have all the correct materials for you right now. I know I'm planning on building more. This will include a landing page, so you could just send them to a link to a landing page where they could just schedule. This will also include like some social posts that you could have that will be compliance approved. Please do not post on social beforehand. And then there will be other things for you, like FAQs, things that you're able to go in and look at, so people would be able to understand and ask questions, always be able to reach out to me. So as those things come up, just let me know, and I'll put them in the queue to start building. But I want to be as helpful as possible to you all, because when it comes down to it, we all have the same mission of trying to solve climate change. And the more money we get into solutions, and the more we drive this narrative, is that this is just a better way to live, this, where we're not sacrificing. That's something I'm really excited about. It's just a story of like how much better our life will be when we stop paying too much money at the gas pump and having bad health benefits and causing climate change, right? It's like our life will be so much better. So both that story and that money are really powerful for us to help solve this like really large scale issue.
Cool. So is this the time for questions? We should open it up for questions.
Yeah. Anybody?
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
When approaching a college or university or some educational institution, what would be the person to target at that place?
Yeah. So like I'll just give you like the disclaimer that universities have been places in which they have a really unique landscape, and we don't know it as well yet. So we will probably learn alongside of you. And what I mean by that is many universities, I was on the board at USC's Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies. They offered 4 or 5 different type of custodian relationships for their employees, right? Because they have so many employees. So I don't always know what the exact process is, but it's likely going to be someone that is responsible for benefits, right? They'll have benefits in their title, head of HR. They'll be in that part of the administration. That's why I'd say there's also, like, at universities, there are sub companies, right? So it's like, for example, a really funny thing that I'm going to tell that's like disproportionately valuable to Becca is Stanford's dining halls is a Project Drawdown business partner.
I did not know that.
So,
Ooh, I see a prospect right there. And
yeah, so it's just
especially
like,
someone who eats at the dining hall, maybe still.
yeah, so it's just like people there, and there's like sub businesses in these places a lot of the time as well.
Right, so
And
like they might have campus security done by a different company.
yeah, so if you might have different places, but there's going to be like a main administration. Inside that administration, it's going to be someone that's like responsible for benefits. They'll have like benefits in their title, or human resources, or people, or something like that. That's going to be the person. And if you want, you can always ask me, like, hey, I'm going to go to this university. What I'm able to do is I can go look up on their publicly available, they're called Form 5500s, and they're disclosing that they're investing in a smart way. I can look up who's signing off, right? So if you looked at Rutgers, I could go look at Rutgers University and see like who's signing off on these plans. Public universities are much harder because they usually have governmental oversight. Private universities have full control over their retirement plans, though.
So these Form 5500s, if it's public, where would one go to see that? Who's signing off?
I mean, I can send it to you here. Look, I'll put it in the chat so you guys can have it. What I'd say is it is going through really boring paperwork. So if you ever just I put it in the chat. There it is. If you ever want to look at like your company that you're thinking about. So for example, I'm going to do Rutgers University right now.
Which, by the way, is a public school.
Okay, let's not do Rutgers then. I'm going to do TaylorMade. All right.
But wouldn't the public university have to fill out the Form 5500 as well?
Yeah, they're going to have to fill out the Form 5500 as well too. Oh, TaylorMade has an interesting plan. They're not disclosing it in a normal way.
Or pick Notre Dame, Notre Dame. That's a private school. Where or Stanford.
Yeah, I just was plugging in Stanford. Okay, Stanford. So Stanford's has a students 401k plan. So this would be all the students that are at like the dining halls. So
Like
that's really funny.
Students who are employed by the university in some way.
Yeah, students who, yeah, there's a Associated Students of Stanford University 401k savings and profit sharing plan. There's another one here. Let's look at this. This is, where's the latest date? I'm just gonna look up 2020. That a lot has happened in the last few years. So where did 2020 go?
Rebecca, are you at Stanford? Is that what I'm getting? Yeah.
Yes.
What year are you?
I'm a junior, 3rd year.
Right.
Yes.
When's your season? Is that year round, or is there a season?
Golf is all year round. We have nationals in spring, but we play and practice all year round. Yeah.
Are you playing in San Diego in June or July, or whenever there's like the youth world championships are here or something?
I am not, no.
Okay.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, it's a busy time.
Maybe I'm sure there's like nonstop travel for you. Yeah.
Well, for me personally, not, because our team is like crazy good, and so to qualify for the top 5 that play, it's tough because we're 10 on the team.
Wow.
But we still have like a lot of practices and practice rounds and all of that. So, and from time to time I get to travel because the whole team travels, but
Yeah.
doesn't make it less stressful.
Yeah, no, I was there. So I just looked up Stanford. Michelle Giras is the person to talk to there. I put a link in the profile. Like she, and you look at her profile. What is it? It's like, what was her title? Associate Vice President, Staff and Executive Compensation and Human Resources. Like,
So
this is a perfect person.
it sounds like a perfect person. So what did you do to find that person? Just if other people were looking at
Okay,
university.
I'll screen share again just so you can see it.
Oh, thank you.
I'll just do the full desktop. And since it's up, okay. So what I did, I went to that thing, the Form 5500. Like, y'all, like, this is nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
So please don't feel like you are responsible for this. This is the type of thing where if you tell me, hey, I want to go here, this is what I do. You're welcome to do it and see a little bit into my life, but this is what I do. So I would
want to approach this institution and you tell us who are the likely suspects.
Yeah, so I would hit Stanford. You can see in here, it's in Stanford. I try to go for the most recent plan. And I try to see where the money is. So there'll be like a list over here that shows the money. So right here, I go to Stanford 2020. I click that button. It shows up. I've already downloaded this. So in here, it will show you like on the first page, who has signed off on this right there. And wow, they actually signed it. This is pretty late for them to sign off for the year. Oh, it's because they ended it last year. But right here, you have Michelle Giras, right? If you go in here, it will show you all sorts of stuff, which.
And also related to colleges and universities, how does Carbon Collective answer or not the cry from students and staff to divest from this or that?
Yeah, I mean, we think that's really smart. One, we have talked to, like, I've talked to sustainability groups and student divestment groups about why we think that's smart. We've talked about how to really understand the argument. Not a lot of people understand. I'd say the biggest thing that a lot of students don't understand is what does fiduciary responsibility actually mean as narrowly defined in the United States. And so we help them understand that this is like a almost literally financial argument, and while that seems very disappointing, the thing that's also exciting is that's an argument you can win. Because right now what we are seeing is fossil fuels have had a lost decade, right? Their one good year was because of Russia invading Ukraine. That is like totally exogenous. That's not something that they can scale in their business model, right? Driving down
Money.
What's that?
Like it's so clearly blood money. Sometimes there's like questionable
Totally.
practices. It's a gray area. It's not so cause and effect. But I mean, if you tell someone like, yeah, I mean, you could have made some money on that company, but it was on the backs of Ukraine. Like,
Yeah,
that's a pretty easy point to make.
it is a really easy point to make, but and a lot of people in these talks make it. I think it's important to bring it up, but as fiduciary responsibility has been narrowly defined, that is not what gets brought in. And I'm really sorry. I don't think that should be the case, but as is currently constructed, that is the case. And so what we say is like, fossil fuels have not been a good investment, nor do we think they're going to be a good investment going forward because their two main markets, transportation and electricity generation, are being gobbled up by renewables. You're getting electric vehicles. In California, they're 12% of all new car sales, up from 1% just a few years earlier. If you're losing that much market share in your main market, you do not have high prospects that fast. That is a ridiculously speedy loss. And so it's like, where are they going to make up their market? Right now, they do not have good places to grow into. I mean, on our team, we've had this argument of like, what if they would would want to use their skills and expertise, and we're like, deep geothermal would be super interesting because that involves drilling into the Earth's core in a very specific way to create renewable energy. Like that would be an amazing way that like fossil fuels could do something different, but they're not doing that. And so they just don't have the market to grow into to warrant investing in on a financial level, in addition to being morally and ethically wrong, right? Like it is blood money, right? And like there's a book I'm reading, it's called How Beautiful We Were, and it's basically about like it's a fictionalized version of Exxon and how they have destroyed like villages in places like Nigeria, right? Because the amount of pollution that comes off of these places is astounding. It's life-changing, you know, it's ecosystem changing. So, and you will hear people talk about the fact that like, oh, you also have to mine as well. And it's like, yes, you do, but that's a renewable level of mining, right? So it's like when you go and mine for batteries, and I'm not saying this is good, I'm just saying it's a lot less sucky. But what's to say is like,
Not to get too technical.
yeah, but it's like when you're looking at like on the ethical level of this, on the pollution level, you do all the mining for a solar panel, it sits on a roof for 25 years. Right? You use that same amount of material, like of extractive processes to get gas. That's like 2 weeks of gas. You know, like there's just like the quantities are so disproportionately out there that it's like good to remember, because unfortunately we don't live in a perfect world, right? There is a lot of complexity. There are salient aspects to some of the points that people bring up. It's just when you put them in context of the actual problem, I think they're laughable. You know, so it's like, yeah.
Lena has a question.
Lena.
Question, yeah. Well, technically the carbon sits in the atmosphere too, but that's not what we want, right?
Yeah.
From the exhaust from these, and it sits maybe
Yes.
for hundreds of years, but that's exactly the opposite of what we want. Just to
Right.
underscore your point, I have a question. Do you have a wish list of companies that you'd ideally like to connect with?
Oh, I mean, when I think of eco athletes, I'd love to get Nike. Like I'd love to get, you know, it would be so great to get Nike.
Do
You
you
know, I
want
think
to like put together, what I'm saying is like put together a wish list and send it to us, and then you never know where, you know, the connections may be.
all right, I'll put together a wish list for you.
Yeah, I think, and building off of that, I think what would be really awesome, and it doesn't have to be today, but the email template, and then also talking points, as I mentioned last night. It's not just because we're going to be talking to people before we actually maybe get to write an email. So literally bullet points about Carbon Collective and what the ask is. And then target hit list could be top 10, top 20, whatever. Whatever.
I might do a target hit list that's based on like the people I've been around, right? So it's like, I'd love to get Stanford's 401k, for example, because I know that Becca's on this call. You know, Gary was on the call last night. I'd love to get the 49ers 401k, you know? So like, and I'll give you like a little bit of a blend of like people that have talked to me and I immediately got an idea, and, you know, just organizations that I think would be good. Like Nike would be an awesome one.
And could you also include a profile? Like, for example, it was good to know that there might be an added layer to get through with a public university versus a private university. If you could just give sort of, rather, in addition to the specific companies, like these are organizations that we typically have success with. They're this number of employees or that kind of thing. And then also another thing, because I know we're running out of time, and I want to leave space because I keep talking. Is there something that you say that would be included in the talking points about the effect that this has? I have the impression, and tell me if this is right, that this is one of the places where we can be huge. So I get so annoyed with the like reuse people with the reusable water bottles, and don't let your car idle when you're waiting outside a store, like all of these like picayune little individual actions, which yes, they add up, but they're nowhere near where the responsibility lies, which is with governments and multinational corporations. So
It doesn't match the scale of the problem.
Right.
sorry.
It doesn't match the scale of the problem.
Yes, and this is a place where we as individuals who are in charge of our investment decisions can try to wag the dog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And this is why, from, you know, being completely frank from Eco Athlete's point of view, why I was attracted to this, because champions ask me all the time, what's the most important thing I can do on climate change? And a lot of times, yes, and I'll use the example of plastic water bottles. Of course, it's best to reduce that. It's best not to idle. It's great to walk that short distance to the supermarket rather than drive, all of that. But if you really want to scale things, I say the key thing is to vote. Vote with your, at the ballot box, vote with your purchases, yes, but even bigger, your investments. And then if we can, because of the power of sports and the power of athletes, get to influence 401ks, I mean, that is,
I mean, there's trillions of dollars there that could be.
I was
moved
going to
up
say that's a
into
home run,
organizations.
but really that's a hole in one.
Yeah.
That's a spike
Yeah.
to be relevant to the sports that we have on hand here today. And I don't know, what do you guys think, Bex and Lena?
I think that's the, you know, I wonder if also the community aspect of this, you know, where, you know, there is a part of this program that, you know, that you're in a group of people that have the same beliefs, and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother level of commitment when, you know, you open your wallet in your future in that regard to what you say you believe in. So I think it's an opportunity to create that community of a shared future.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think, I mean, as with eco athletes in general, it's about like bringing people together and towards the same goal. And I think having as many opportunities and options to do that is key. And then so I think this is like another perfect way of doing that. And yeah, I agree with what Lena said. I think it's about, people like to talk a lot, but then actually doing it is a different thing. And so it's key that people actually take action in that respect, and yeah, put their money where they say they would.
Damn
Also,
straight.
it would be great to be able to demonstrate an early win. In your experience, what organizations not only are good targets, but also like maybe the process isn't
Yeah.
not 18 months?
Yeah. So I would say the best easy win would be a small company that's under 200 employees. It would be privately owned, right? You would, like, the owner has like a lot of authority, and you know the owner, right? Like if you know that person, and they have a 401k, we are getting on all the platforms. So we could have it set up so it would be 2 signs, right? So all they need is 2 signatures. We don't have to move them. All we have, like, they just have to, you know, if they're mission aligned, that's the best, right? So there's, you know.
So you know the owner and they already have a 401k.
Know the owner, already have 401k. They have a lot of employees that want this. They want this. It's like it can be a pretty easy win.
I'm thinking like, I love Stanford because yeah, it's not a small,
Not small, won't be fast.
Not small, but private university with the right mission and with indefatigable golfer who, you know,
Yeah.
not to put any pressure. And I also, although he hasn't joined these chats, I think we have Brent Suter as one of our champions, and he's on the Colorado Rockies. And
Oh
I
yeah,
just-
the
I
Rockies
just-
would be a great example of an organization. It's small, it's privately held. Whoever the owner of the Rockies is, if they believe in solving climate change, this would be a really easy win.
Yeah, and Brent is
That's a big
certainly,
if.
yeah,
Right, I
Brent
don't
is
know.
certainly a great advocate, although he's new on the team. But anyway.
I'll look at who the owner of the Colorado Rockies is. All right, owner the Monfort brothers.
But even if they personally aren't into it, their fans in Denver, Boulder, that's a good region of the country for this.
Yeah, totally. What I would say though is like if you don't have someone at the top who believes in this, it is unlikely to go very far.
All right, fair enough.
So,
in any case, we're up against time.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if Lena or Patches or Bex have any other questions before we break.
If
Yeah.
you
All right.
put together the wish list, I think
The wish list, the email
Forward-
template, and the talking
forward it
points.
over to us, and then we'll see
Yeah.
what.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
that profile, because we could follow up with people who aren't on this call but may still be interested about the under 200 employees, privately owned, the low hanging fruit description.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be great.
So Breen, send it to me, and then I'll get it. I'll distribute it out to the champions.
That sounds
good.
great.
Yeah.
And I'll include my personal information too, like email,